Welcome to the Amplifying Leadership podcast, where we bring you inspiring guest stories on leadership topics by sharing information, tips, and more. My name is Tara Lehman, and I'm a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is a division. Leaders, we are here to support you with tools, coaching, workshops, and more through our leadership services. To learn more about our leadership division and community, please visit amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Andres Klaric. Andres is the co-founder and co-CEO of Fuse, a financial technology startup company. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tara.
All right. I'm excited to get started and learn a little bit more about your leadership story. So how did you become a leader or even the co-founder of your own company?
Well, I guess it starts years back, right? Like we're the sum of efforts, right? So I would be doing a disservice to the family if I didn't really tell it from the very beginning. So I was raised in Bolivia. I was raised in Bolivia. My family had been in the auto space through multiple sources. Grandpa was a race car driver. My dad has been in auto finance. My first job out of high school was selling cars. I paid for college selling cars. And then I spent 10 years on Wall Street investing in tech and business services. I met my co-founder at Harvard 8 years ago now, and we decided to join forces over 2 or 3 years ago. We saw an opportunity to build something in the auto lending space, so like focusing on refinancing car loans in the United States. We saw that there was a lot of manual processes, and we thought, hey, like this can be done better. We recruited a number of lenders to which we were selling them loans that we were originating ourselves. And they kept asking us, hey guys, you're pretty young and as a company, and like what you're building seems pretty interesting. Would you be interested in perhaps licensing that software? And little by little, that it became like a unison type of voice from our customers. And we decided to kind of like transition from being a direct to consumer business to one that sold enterprise software to lenders here in the US.
Okay.
So we raised millions of dollars of capital. In essence, like our customers are finance companies, credit unions, banks here in the US. And what we do is it's like mini time machines, right? Like we make it very much easier for borrowers to borrow and for lenders to lend, right? Like we've automated processes that used to be fairly cumbersome and like make them instant in such a way that like you can delight customers. And like the most important thing, at least from a mission perspective, is that marginal borrower gets a loan, right? Like because today because the processes are too cumbersome, the process of lending becomes expensive. We lower those costs. When you lower costs, that allows the little guy and gal have the opportunity to be approved because essentially like the cost of approval has gone down.
I see. And so how big is your company? How many staff are you leading?
We're a number of engineers. I'm the only non-engineer, I would say. Okay. The rest is like we have 20 plus engineers, and we're a tech company, right? So heavily focused on product and shipping high quality solutions, and we need to continuously kind of ensure that our services are like top notch, safest, and the most efficient in the marketplace.
Absolutely. It sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So like all leaders and business owners, I'm sure you've had some obstacles to overcome. Would you be willing to share one or two of your leadership obstacles that came your way while building your business?
Yeah, I mean, switching from direct to consumer to business, the format, the approach and the go-to-market were like difficult transitions. And like, obviously when you raise venture money, that raises the bar pretty high, right? Because you need to communicate first and foremost to investors that you're going to utilize funds in a different way. You also need to make sure all the employees are equipped and empowered to kind of allow you to get to the new harbor, because like, when you do direct to consumer, you will need a very different team that it's B2B, right? So
yes, absolutely.
When direct to consumer implies less engineers, perhaps more operations. So you need to see who's going to fit that new criteria of organization. And last but not least, and perhaps even more important, if I have to kind of re-rank, will be the founding team. The founding team needs to be convinced, have the utmost conviction that going in this new direction is the best use of the time, of resources, and it's necessarily the path that is going to ensure the highest level of success for the entire organization. It takes time, it takes months, it takes a lot of careful meditation, and it's pretty much fact-based, right? Like you need to make sure the kind of like they always John Maynard Keynes has attributed to the saying that when the facts change, I change my mind. So what do you do, right? So I think that we live by that mantra as a team. We of course we're pretty diligent about finding the facts though, because you can find facts that are outdated. So we're trying to make sure that whenever we make a decision that we inform it to the highest level of richness. But also we don't fall in the trap of analysis paralysis too, right? But that's easier to say than done, right? Because sometimes you don't know if you've done enough analysis. At some point you need to 80-20 things. And one of the things that we thought was so useful is to putting timelines, right? Like if you don't put timelines for things, you can always say you can perfect an analysis more. But once you have timelines, it creates a clear set goal of like, by this time, I need an answer, right? And that creates a lot of discipline in the team, and that helped us kind of navigate that transition. So I would say, from a leadership standpoint, I would of all the process journeys I've had, transitioning from one to another was single-handedly one of the most challenging, but also most gratifying of sorts.
Yeah, and I like that you help explain it a little bit for our listeners, because going from B2C to B2B is not a simple process. It is, like you mentioned, completely different mindset, even how you communicate. And I like that you also brought up timelines, because you're right, analysis paralysis happens in a lot of companies. But if you put that timeline on it, the analysis needs to happen. I mean, we live in this crazy, fast-changing world. But putting that deadline on it certainly helps us from going overboard, so to speak. So I love that you brought that up, because when it comes to goals and things like that, timelines are so important. Then you don't get overbearing on things and you get things done. So indeed. Let's move to the communication side of leadership. And especially when you think about going from B2C to B2B, how did your communication change? Either as a leader within your team or even to the customers?
The customers are completely different, right? Because B2C is anyone that has most people that have a car most likely have a car loan, right? So anyone on TikTok was your target audience, right? Yeah. Anyone that was of age to get a car loan was a potential audience. Whereas our audience today are like chief lending officers, chief technology officers, just a couple of like specific titles within a financial institution that really applies to our target audience. And frankly speaking, the price points are different. So once you're selling enterprise software, the weight of that decision is going to fall in 3 to 4 people within an organization. There's going to be a champion, and that champion needs to be equipped with all the information they need in order to kind of sponsor that transaction or sponsor that change. We like to make it very simple for our partners to kind of transition to us. But then again, the incumbents have not made it easier in the past to go through the similar processes. So we need to re-educate them. We need to partner with them, and kind of it's a consultative approach that takes time, and it's highly personalized, right? It's not something that they just throw an ad on TikTok and all of a sudden you have a 5-year contract with a massive Canadian or US bank, right? So that the go-to-market changes. One of them, you never got to know the customers, and in this one, you get to know the customers, you get to know their families, you get to know like their aspirations, their objectives as an organization, and it's like it makes at the bare minimum, it's like a 3 to 5 to 10 year relationship with them, right? So you're in the long haul, and the stakes are pretty high, right? Because some of them are at an inflection in their careers too. They're not the owner of the company. They're like someone that is like perhaps like really on an upward trajectory organization, and they're really betting that this particular technology is gonna enable the organization go to the next level. So
Right.
you need to make sure you convey them, you convey to them that the decision that they're going to make and like all the pros that they're going to get through your product are aligned with that set of individual and organizational objectives that they might have, right? So
Yeah.
communications are key.
And I love that you brought up the word relationship with them, because you're right. When it's, business to consumer end user, it's completely different. I mean, when you do business to business, you build those relationships because you want the long-term business with them. So it does become about learning about their families and maybe it's a dinner out once in a while, whatever that is, to build that relationship for long-term success. So I do like that you brought that up, because I think it is a very important difference. I mean, not that we don't want our consumers to feel good about us and our companies and build a relationship, but it's in a different way for sure. How do you look at communication when it comes to your team with this change that you had to do? Did you have any complications or good news stories to share?
Yeah, I mean, as I was kind of alluding, right? Like not everyone is going to fully transition from that original team, right? So there's difficult decisions. So that how do you communicate that? How do you kind of explain who stays in and who kind of needs to go in a different direction? So that entire planning, that entire process of transitioning the direction of the business, it's fundamental to kind of communicate to the teams, hey, this is what we're thinking. These are kind of the proof points that we're trying to validate on this time frame. These are kind of the ideas that we're thinking about, and keeping them fully informed. But at the same time, kind of this I think is helpful advice not only to people that are like in the C-suite, but also like managing upwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of managing those expectations and telling them, hey, this is what it could happen if this happens, right? But at the same time, showing them solutions right in advance, because sometimes I do remember my early days in my career that you have a bunch of questions and you really don't volunteer that many solutions because you're either too immature or you're just like at a stage in your career in which no one really cares about your opinion, or at least they're not necessarily asking your opinion. But I do think that like what employees or people above you will appreciate is coming from questions, but also saying like, these are the set of answers that I think these are my hypotheses, right? So hypotheses are very important because it shows that you're already kind of thinking, but you're kind of showing me, these are the questions I have, these are the hypotheses, what the answers will be. This is what else I need to know. And you just convey that to the teams. And at the same time, you also need to insulate to some extent the team from like some of the uncertainty. Tell them like, this is what we don't know, but this is what we're doing to find the truth, right? Like seeking the truth is it's a process of teamwork, but I think when you're the leader of the organization, you need to carry the weight of that truth seeking for the most part.
So let me ask you, do you have remote or hybrid or all in-house people, or a mix?
We have a mix. So we have to deal with the pros and costs of it. Yeah.
Do you find that communication is different depending on who and where they work?
Absolutely, because you don't. I think with someone you're like on a day to day, there's like the opportunity, the water cooler moment, right? Like
yes.
Yeah, and we've all had it, and like it's not that we are, at least generationally speaking, I am not the class of 2020 or 2021 in which I didn't know what it was there before, right? I know how is it to actually be in a full office environment. So I for us, it's like we take full advantage of the fact that we can find talent anywhere in the world now. But I do recognize that like you need to invest more in those relationships and in order to give them much better of an experience, right? Because otherwise they're alone in their apartments or wherever they're working from, and they don't have much line of sight, right? Like, is this person still at work? Have they left? Can I ask them something? Can I send them a WhatsApp? Can I send them a text? Can I send them a Slack message? So I do think that like, although it's been, I love the fact that we've been able to like democratize the access to talent. I still think that like whenever possible for companies that have the resources, it's pretty neat once or twice a year to like offer the opportunity for employees to actually meet in the real world, right? Like it just brings that handshake, that laughter, that breaking bread with someone that I do think that we're humans, right? Like, and
Yes,
particularly
we
for
like
me, I'm
camaraderie.
so yeah, we like
Yeah.
camaraderie. Like, and I think for my co-founder and myself, we have the opportunity to meet our customers, right? Like, and of course we want to meet our employees too, right? Because
Yes.
our employees make it possible to like make our clients pretty happy, right? And like
Yeah.
this is a symbiotic nature of both, right? So we want to equally spend time with all of them.
Yeah, and bringing people together once or twice a year too helps with time zone issues if there is any of
Exactly.
those. You know, my company was global corporate, and so it's difficult, you know, if you have people over in Asia or India or something and it's 12 hours difference, you know, it's difficult. So yes, I like that's something I see a lot of remote companies doing these days. So when you think about your industry in general, is there any major obstacle that you see leaders are currently having?
As it pertains to like the financial institutions and like fintech as a whole, um, I do think that like when it remote is one of the things that like, also conveying kind of recruiting talent. I think it's a recurring thing, but in particular the level of specialization that our software requires. Back in the day, uh, there was not the tech arms race was not at the same level, right? Like you
Right.
could actually
Yeah.
get a decent tech team that will build this, but the set of solutions that you need, like the endpoint, the kind of like the bundling that has happened in the sector, has created like the need for specialization. So if
Mhm.
you're a financial institution uh, trying to like build what we have built, you're gonna have to deploy a lot of resources, right? You're gonna have to hire a very specific talent. That there's a limited amount of folks that know how to do it well and do it in a
Right.
sustainable fashion and do it in a way that you can afford it. So I do think that like coming to that recognition that not everything can build in house is something that I think the industry is kind of struggling to communicate internally, like realizing that hey, these solutions have gotten so complex that although
Hmm.
we could build it, it's going to take years. Whereas Fuse uh, or whoever they pick, right? Like they have a novel solution. It's much better than
Hmm.
the incumbents, and it's ready, right? So
Yeah.
having getting to that point of realization that takes time. So you need to help them. It's my job to uh, to to allow them to come to that same conclusion, to kind of usher them to that conclusion, right? And give them the facts. And when the
Yeah.
facts change, I hope they change your mind. So
Yes.
that's but getting to that aha moment takes time, and they once they are convinced, they need to convince and evangelize internally, right? So that
Hmm.
process is probably some of the hardest one to communicate within an organization. It's particularly
Yeah.
as the organization gets larger and larger.
And your industry is ever changing, minute by minute
Yeah,
in some cases,
yeah,
right? With
yeah.
softwares and stuff like that.
And
Yeah. It's
regulation, right? Like
yes,
regulation is huge because
huge.
it's not only like it's not only technology, but also like the changes in regulation that make it when it comes to banks or any of our other type of lenders that we work with, the regulatory framework uh, doesn't allow for mistakes, right?
Hmm.
99% correct still means you're failing. So you don't
Yes.
pass it. So you get
Right.
fines and all of that. So the bar is pretty high for excellence here.
Absolutely. I can see that with technologies and everything, like I said, ever changing. It absolutely it's yeah, regulatory, everything changing every minute. So if we put all of these things together and we think about industries like fintech or other technology companies, what do you think is the biggest tip for leaders in order to lead effectively?
I mean, you're touching in communication, right? But like
Yeah.
that, I think being able to convey a message, relay it, and make it easy to consume, because you can communicate quite well, right? But or you can just say everything. You just do a data dump. But some of the exercises that we've done as an organization is setting out values, right? Like that asynchronously, like people can actually use that as a roadmap, right? I'm talking here internally, right? Like what we've and 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 having that code of conduct, like how you make decisions, kind of being super transparent with your employees of what it means to work here, how do you make decisions, how do we code, what is expected. At first sight, it feels like that this could come up as an overwhelming amount of information for them and employees, but in reality, is what you're giving them. If you can succinctly explain it in a way that it's not overwhelming, is you're giving them a roadmap to success, right? Like, and instead of having a culture of tribal knowledge, you have a culture of leaving a paper trail of what's considered excellent here, right? And when you do that, you create accountability, right? It's because if you say like, hey, the co-founder said that this was the golden standard, and like I've been doing this, and like I think that creates a culture of like we're on the record, right? As opposed to saying, and your employees are not just second guessing themselves, trying to really read our minds, because that's kind of the worst outcome that could happen, right? When you actually do not have codified anything, you employ some of your employees are going to be naturally more they're going to click with you more than others, but that's just because like social engineering. Whereas when you actually put something written down, you force yourself to say like, this is who I am, this is how I like to work, and in essence you create kind of like the social fabric of like, this is how we do business, right? And how this is how we work here. This is how we expect you to be successful here. And if you don't like it, at least you know it. Whereas
yes, exactly.
Figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about the culture and
yes,
the communication, the accountability, the empowerment. I mean, all these great things that you have put into place certainly will help build and even help sustain and retain those employees. So I think you guys are doing a great job with all of that. If our audience wanted to learn more about you or your company, how could they find you online?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty good at responding within 24 hours. First name is Andres, Andres. Last name is Klaric, Klaric. I love paying it forward. So don't be shy. I'll do my best. And if I don't know the answer, I'll let you know. But in general, I'll do my best to kind of lend a hand and learn from others.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And thanks for an awesome conversation today.
Thank you, Tara. I had a blast.
And of course, a thank you to our audience as well. We both hope that you were able to take a few takeaways to help you on your leadership journey. If you are a leader who knows that leadership coaching, consulting, or even having a leadership community are the way to grow you on your leadership journey, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca, a twin life coaching and business services division. Until next time, please be safe and be an amazing leader or leader to be.